been debated about in recent videos. Me not discussing St. Louis. The first thing we can discuss with St. Louis is how small this list is currently. Now, I took this off of dailyfaceoff.com, which seems to have the most up-to-date lineups. So right now they're missing Robbie Fabry. He's not playing this year. And that looked bad because coming into this season, St. Louis looked like a team that was kind of in flux. One of those teams that was middling, maybe could fall a little bit. Maybe they overachieved. And losing Fabry, very good, solid prospect. I still qualify him as a prospect because we haven't seen what he can do yet. We've seen parts of it, but I don't think he's really hit his stride yet. And we know where this team currently is, so that's kind of scary. They're missing Berglund. Now, they signed Berglund in the offseason, and they signed him he got a lot of money due to the season that he just had, which kind of felt like a career year. So I wasn't anticipating Berglund getting 30 goals this year anyways. But you're losing Berglund, you're using Fabry. That's what, 2 of their top 6? Bouwmeester just came back. Bouwmeester was on this list. That's one of their top 4 defensemen. Sanford, bottom 6 guy. He's sort of in the mix. So they looked like they were down 3 core guys. And not very many teams are going to do well missing 3 core guys. So how did they do it? Well, first off, Braden Schen's been a revelation. Okay, the Schwartz, Schenn, Tarasenko, absolute revelation. I don't think that St. Louis necessarily knew how good Schenn was going to be for them. I don't think Philly knew what a difference Schenn was making for them either. You look at where Philly is in the standings right now, and I think they could use some of what Schenn brings. Schenn seems to be leaning more towards the skill side than previous seasons, where that sandpaper and some of his more controversial play comes into the picture. Schen's just seemingly having tons and tons of fun right now. And it shows. Stastny, Steen, Sobotka. Surprising in that if they do have Sobotka on the wing, that means they have 2 guys that can take face-offs. So when Stastny gets kicked out, Sobotka can step in. Soboka's been a key addition, and I like that addition as soon as it became public. I've always been a big Vlad Sobotka fan. I have never tried to hide my fandom of Sobotka. And Steen is an underrated forward. Stastny is in a contract year, and always watch guys in contract years because they will often perform really, really well. But then on the third line, you get Yaskin, Sundqvist, PRV. Fourth line's Upshall, Brodziak, Thorburn. The interesting thing here is, on the right side, you could argue that PRV and Thorburn are a little weaker, but Thorburn is that grit and that sandpaper. And PRV is an example of how a player who's drafted early on and is projected to be a certain type of player can reinvent themselves. Magnus PRV, at the time that he was traded to St. Louis from the Oilers, was just a cast-off. He was done. St. Louis just wanted to be, or Edmonton wanted to be rid of him. And those guys can go back to haunt you. This is the kind of bottom 6 guy the Oilers could really use right now. They don't have that kind of bottom 6 guy. So he's become a bottom 6 guy. Sundqvist was a very good acquisition by them. And Yaskin. I like Yaskin. He got a goal the other night. I'm still waiting on him to become a top 6 type forward. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but hey, I keep waiting on it. And Upshall has had a tremendous start for St. Louis. Of course, he tried out for the Canucks. He went over to China with the Canucks, and then he left their camp to go to St. Louis when it became obvious there was renewed interest due to the amount of injuries that they had. So Upshall came in as a veteran to replace one of the injured forwards, and then you got Thorburn on the other side, and Brodziak's a pretty decent guy. Also, former Oiler. It's funny how that works out. So, there's your top 12, and that is a very solid top 12. There's no issue with that top 12. Just looking at it like, wait, is it 16? No, it's not 16, Shannon. You have 3 forwards in each line, not 4. So, very solid 12 forwards. Very hard to find a weakness. You could argue Thorburn, I guess. Thorburn replaces Reeves. Reeves in Pittsburgh has been playing so well that there are Penguins fans saying, why is Reeves in the lineup? So there's that. I remember Reeves came in and it was, oh, we got to protect Sid. We gotta toughen up. And Pittsburgh this year, it's been kind of, and meanwhile, St. Louis has taken off. On the blue line, you got Edmondson and Pietrangelo. Pietrangelo is on pace for a Norris Trophy. And he's overdue for a Norris Trophy when you really think about it. There are a lot of defensemen that are overdue for Norris Trophies, and he's one of them. So, good luck to him, I guess. I look at Pietrangelo, I look at his body of work, and he doesn't get the respect that he really deserves. He doesn't. I think part of it is because you play in St. Louis. St. Louis is one of those odd places in terms of, it's not West Coast, it's not East Coast, and it's not really a marquee center like Chicago. So St. Louis doesn't get the media interest that Chicago gets, or LA or Rangers, those really big meccas, or Boston and Detroit because original six. So St. Louis is just kind of, oh, and the Blues. They're kind of just thrown in. So Pietrangelo has been kind of ignored for that reason. If Pietrangelo played for, say, the Rangers, he would have been in the Norris Trophy conversation as recently as last year. Bouwmeester coming back, he's with Parayko. That's not fair. This is a blue line that was already playing really, really well. Now you add Bouwmeester back to the mix. What this does is it allows them to trade a defenseman out, knowing they have the depth, and maybe bring in another forward, just in case the injury bug starts to bite him again. So, and of course you're taking the risk then of a defenseman getting hurt, right? But we'll see what they do, because this is a really solid lineup. And of course, third pairing, Dunn and Bertuzzo. And there were those who were concerned that Dunn would get pulled out of the lineup when Bouwmeester came back. I wasn't concerned, because just hearing the feedback on how well Dunn was playing, I knew that there was no point in pulling Dunn out of the lineup. That when Bouwmeester came back, Dunn would not be the one that got pulled out of the lineup because he was playing really, really well. It's a concern I had in Vancouver as recently as last year with Troy Stetcher, where he's playing really well. I'm like, oh, when somebody comes back, is he going to get pulled out? And he didn't. So, Dunn's playing well. Bortuzzo is one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. I found that out not this past offseason, but the offseason before, playoffs before, when they were up against San Jose in that conference final. Getting to that conference final, Bortuzzo really proved himself, and has proven himself over and over again. So I like Bortuzzo a lot. I'm glad he's still in their top six. And in net, Allen's looked fantastic, and Hutton's been pretty damn solid as a backup. When you look at St. Louis, there really isn't anything you look at and say, well, but, where you find a hole in their lineup and you say, if they get rid of, it is a really solid lineup. They're not the only really solid lineup in the league. But this lineup is solid enough that they're first. They are on pace right now for over 60 wins. I don't see them getting over 60 wins. But just being on that pace, 20 games into the season, that's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive that at the quarter mark that we are talking about St. Louis as being a real Stanley Cup contender. And again, as I said in the video earlier, I will be discussing Stanley Cup contenders a little bit more in tomorrow's videos. But for now, you guys let me know what you think. Again, this is for Blues fans who have said that I've been neglecting them, and I apologize if that's the case. It's just there's not much to discuss here. I can put up a lineup of Buffalo, Edmonton, and almost any other team that's at the bottom of the league and start tearing it apart and saying, okay, what do they need? Where do they need it? Where is everything falling apart? It's sort of like for reporters, what are you going to report on? Are you going to report on that building that's on fire, or the pristine, wonderful, beautiful gold building across the street that there's not a single thing wrong with it? Oh, the fire's far more interesting. So St. Louis isn't on fire right now, other than in the standings, where they're most definitely on fire. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I'll talk to you again soon.